My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 213 of Legally Clueless. If you're new to the family, welcome. All your episodes like this go out every single Monday and you can stream them on Spotify and everywhere else you find podcasts. Head over to legallycluelessafrica.com to watch our tour series. We're going on tour again soon. Well, we're in the planning phase, so I'm really excited about that. And while you're on our website, you can also watch our video series. There's 3 seasons out of it and sign up to be part of our community as well. If you are an OG member, I have so much love for you. Thank you so much for being part of this community and helping us grow across the 4 years we've been around. I'm very excited about this episode because part 1 was super powerful and I've wanted to have Rosalind share her story here for a while. And it's so awesome that we get to do that. So part 2 of Rosalind's story is coming up. Listen to this.
And then there's issues of ritual sex. On the 4th day after they buried my husband Adele, they brought some nyatiti player. Nyatiti is a traditional instrument. So this guy came. Kumbe the guy is the cleanser, drank a local instrument player in the village. Should have been the cleanser. Then the inheritors would have been one of my in-laws. So there is a normal belief and cultural belief that when a man dies, the bad omen befalls his wife, the widow. And this bad omen can only be cleaned off sexually. And so there's going to be sexual intercourse. And in most cases, body fluids have to meet. So that is what was supposed to happen. And in my case, because I did not have children, so they bring this man and the claim is that sexual cleansing should happen. And then one of his male relatives should inherit me so that I could have children and name him.
That's coming up a little later in this episode, but before we get there, the song of the week. I'm really excited about this one, and I also can't remember if I've told you about it before, if I haven't, and if I haven't, then shame on me. I absolutely love these 2 gents. They are so futuristic, so fun to hang out with, like you will be laughing throughout, so intelligent, and they make pretty awesome music. They're from right here in Kenya. Their name is Mankind. And the name of the song is Home. It is just so, it's just so powerful and it's so beautiful. After I left radio, I've kind of lost touch with a lot of musicians, them included. So I don't know. I need to check up on where they are now, but I still jam to this song. I just find it to be so powerful, so well put together. I hope you love it too. I put a link to it in the show notes. So I'm back from Senegal to my gardener having done his own shenanigans. That's irritating me. I wanted him to plant certain trees and he was meant to wait for me to come back and we would do it together. He decided to do it himself and he planted the wrong trees in the wrong way. As in, so irritating. Anyway, but I'm back. Senegal was amazing. Specifically, Dakar is where I was. I'm just so thankful. Like I'm in just like a space of gratitude from this trip. Just feeling so blessed to have stepped into my voice, into my truth as a woman, as an African, as a human being, and then to be able to travel to different countries and take part in conversations that I really think will liberate Africa and her people is just great because it's so in line with my purpose, and so I feel so fulfilled. And for this particular one, it was such a beautiful convening of people talking about various rights across Africa that have been clamped down on. And I gave the keynote speech at the dinner, and researching for that really just opened my eyes a bit further into the work we need to do in liberating Africa. And then I got to meet people from South Sudan, South Africa, Nigeria, Zambia, the Congo, Gambia. It was just awesome. But I do remember when I arrived in Dakar, there was a long line for the teller who gives visas on arrival, which after the pandemic, Kenyans now need. Before we never needed visas, but now it's a thing. Anyway, and we were so many people in this queue, all African, and there were about 3 white people. I can't speculate which country they're from, but definitely not African. And they tried to like jump the line and they had talked to some of the security guards, and one of the guards was going to try and make them skip the line. And we all like banded together against it. Because honestly, we were in that line for close to 2 hours. It was not fun. Even when that happened, I just remember thinking, why do Africans need visas to enter other African countries? It surely just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't, if you think about it. And the visa process across the board, I feel like, is discriminatory. I remember specifically when I was getting my US visa, it just felt so dehumanizing. I felt like there surely must be a respectful way to go through this process. I don't know why it stings more when I experience that in an African country as an African. But yeah, I just don't get why Africans need visas to get into other African countries. I do appreciate that there's progress been made to erase this, but I was just like, why are we still, even visas on arrival, like what? What is this we're doing to each other? And then the flight there, oh my goodness. The flight there is really long. You leave Nairobi, you stop in Abidjan and refuel. Different people get on the plane as different people get off, and then you continue to Dakar. During that crossover, someone comes to sit next to me, and it was this pastor who just wouldn't stop chatting, like endlessly. Now, I love small talk and I participate willingly, but you know, when you're tired and then there's some days you're just like, not today, please. That was one of those days for me. And this guy was just not getting any hints. I tried putting my headphones on. He wouldn't, like, he would literally like tap me. I tried even increasing the volume so that like he can hear, hey, I'm like really listening to this music. It would not stop him. Towards the end, like, what actually made him stop? He taps me and then he asks me if I'm religious. And so I tell him I'd rather not have this conversation. I think it's a very personal matter and I try to keep out of these conversations. Which I was like, go Adele, setting your boundary. And he keeps asking me and I keep reinforcing my boundary like, bro, are you not listening to the words that I'm telling you, please? Then at the very end, he says, well, whatever you believe, just as long as at the end of the day, you acknowledge there is only one God. And I couldn't keep quiet. I ended up telling him off because I was just like, you cannot be that condescending to other people's beliefs just because they aren't yours. I could be Muslim, I could be Hindu, whatever. I could subscribe to a belief system that doesn't believe what you're saying. How you're deciding that yours is the beginning and the end, just because perhaps you are the majority. I don't know, that it really ticks me off. And yeah, I just told him off. And that was how he was able to shut up for the rest of the flight. But I genuinely think, and I'm working my way to sharing it in an episode, with everything that's happening in my country, Kenya, across different African countries, and well, not only African countries, around the world, with religious people deciding that members of the LGBTQ plus community are wrong or are terrible, etc. I have two thoughts. The first one is, and my partner and I have been talking about this, I don't truly believe there are many people who have a problem with this. I think what's happening, which happens with a lot of polarizing issues, is I'm just going to take a random number. We'll have like 20 people who are angry about it for whatever reasons. Maybe they truly are angry. Maybe they think they need to be angry. Maybe they're trying to deflect attention. But they're a very small percentage. But then the media and social media platforms amplifies this small percentage, right? And then it seems like this huge outrage, because outrage is a very precious commodity right now. But they do that to drive engagement, and then it just becomes this eruption of what appears to be many people. But I feel like even you who thinks you're angry about it, if you search and ask yourself, am I really angry? Why am I angry? You'll realize there is no reason, and maybe you're deflecting your anger on something else. You know what I mean? That's one. The second thing is I hate the debates. I hate the debates around this thing because they're rooted in debating whether another human being deserves to exist. That's what it is you're debating, and that's disgusting. It's just like, how did we get here as people? I'm feeling very strongly about it, and I'm trying to gather my thoughts together before I share anything, but really that's where my mind's at. Sorry, went on a tangent. Back to Dakar. So I explored Dakar alone, which was wonderful. I got mud cloth from the market, carvings. I made a friend. His name is Alu. He took me to the back of his shop where his workshop is, and I just saw how he was doing the carvings, and he gifted me one as a present. Although I don't think it was a gift. I think he overcharged me for the 2 that I bought. And so in essence, I bought 3. But you know what? It's cool. It's all right. I checked out a few local Senegalese fashion lines, which were just so beautiful. I took myself to a beachfront dinner on my last night, literally walked there, and it was first so delicious. I'm craving the meal I had right now, all the way in Nairobi. I don't know. I felt, and for reasons that I'll share much later on, because I did, close a big chapter. It so happened during my Dakar trip. But I'm in a space where I feel so proud of myself. And not for anything that I'm achieving, like career-wise, etc. But really for the reason that I'm showing up for myself. I'm soothing myself when I doubt my boundaries or my capabilities. I'm asking for help when I need it or feel a little stressed. I have found friendship and love that I've always wanted in the structures that I've always wanted it to exist, And I am opening myself to not only receiving love, but giving it without feeling like I'm too much. And I want to share this because I know I've come from a very dark space in relation to what I'm feeling right now. And I've clawed my way out and really worked to the point where I'm so proud of myself. But I'm sharing this to give you the fuel to keep working on yourself, keep trying to be and do better, not for anyone else, but for yourself. There is such a big life ahead of you, and you're just so deserving of it, no matter what anyone else thinks. And I love you so deeply, and I'm really rooting for you. That's really the message I wanted to share with you in this episode. Let's jump into part 2 of Rosalind's story. If you've not listened to part 1, go back to episode 212 so that it makes sense. But in this second part, she dives into her second marriage and the challenges she faced as a widow. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
There was a lady, a procurement officer at National Assembly. She actually called me and said, "Do you tell her? Are you the one who's gone through this banning and all this news around here?" I said, "Yes, it's me. Can you tailor uniforms for National Assembly?" So my first big order was tailoring uniforms, those blue and red and green that they wear in support staff wear during National Assembly. I have done that order for years. And then, when the LPO came, local purchase order came, it was in millions, Adele. I got shocked. First of all, I went to church and I just prayed. I said, "God, it is possible." I don't even have a single cent to supply. Then she called me. She said, "When are you coming to measure?" I said, "I will come." But then I'm figuring, where do you get this kind of money to supply this kind of order? This kind of tender is too big for me. And then she called me one day after 5:00. The office phone, it was a table like this. The office phone, long table, this old mahogany, dark ones, the one you buy in second-hand markets. I bought it in Ngara. The office phone was a landline. It had burnt on one side. So you could not know whether it was ringing or not ringing. And we hadn't tried it. In fact, we forgot. So this particular 5:30, around 6, this phone rings. And I'm like, "Oh, this phone rings." And then I pick. And then it was her. And she said, "Can you come to my office?" Then I went into her office, past National Assembly, past working hour. And she said, "I know you could be going through something. Tell me the truth. Do you have the money to do this job? Because I really want you to do this job. It will settle you." So another woman settled me. I said, "No, I don't have the money. I don't even have the capacity to borrow because the networks of borrowing were part of my marriage and I've lost all of them." I was very open and very frank. She picked her phone and called the cooperative bank next to Parliament. The lady there who's still my friend to date and became my banker, Judith Wekesa. She called Judith and said, "I'm sending a lady to you. See how you can help her. She has an LPO from National Assembly." I didn't have an account there. I had to open an account. I didn't know what to do. In fact, whatever those two women did to make me supply that order is a miracle to me. I opened an account. I put some little money, this repair money. And within, I think, about 2 weeks, I had almost more than 2 million shillings in the account based on that LPO. And then I did the first job. The rest is history. The rest is history. I rebuilt. I grew. I bought cars. I resettled. And then, of course, I ended up remarrying through that same network. I'm a believer of love, Adele. Don't judge me. It's a good question. How do I open up myself without fear of rejection or brutality? I think one of the best traits about me, even growing as a child, is that I'm the kind of daughter, who I don't hold grudges. I don't live in the grudge zone. Either I tell you the truth, this is what is wrong, and then we resolve it and move on, or go separate ways. I'm very demarcated. I'm either happy or sad. I'm either accepting or rejecting. I'm either agreeing with you or disagreeing with you. I'm either in your circle, out of your circle. You can't guess. I don't give people a chance to second guess. But the inner trait built in me, I think the way God made me, is that I'm really a lover. My best trait is love. So even while all this was going, it didn't mean to me that I could never fall in love. Even now, I've been divorced. I've been widowed. It still means, to me, I'm just living my life full circle, After all, I hold this opinion. No man or woman should die with one partner in their life. I hold this opinion strongly because I think people change. In my 20s, I was fighting decision-making and what the impacts of decision-making and what choices meant. In my 30s, I was healing from a brutal divorce and learning how to live with endometriosis. Very different. And then later I remarried and became widowed in my 30s. I was 32. So I also began to deal with widowhood. In my 40s, I am becoming a teacher and a storyteller, using my voice and my personal story to change and empower other women. So life is in seasons. So that was my season of learning what marriage was about. But then I also wanted another kind of marriage, a marriage where there's laughter, where you are age mates, where you are peers, where you are doing things. And I was very intentional. I did not want to marry anybody who was older than me by 2 years or more. I wanted a peer. I wanted a mate, what I call a partner in progress. And then I met someone like that. And then I remarried them. And of course, death came and they went their way, wherever people go when they die. But I had the best time, Adele, in my second marriage. The best time of my life. I married my best friend. I married a man who understood this kind of critical thinking. A man who could be in his own vision. How do I know? When my friends visited, and I have this network of friends globally. So one of my friends lives in London, Joyce. When she visited, and we would have this, the kind of conversation me and you have, soulful, spiritual, what are you doing about this? And Joyce and I, we go loud and then we quarrel and then we laugh. And then we are like, so my husband would open my bedroom door and say, hallelujah. Amujapigana. This will not end. So can I grab my nightgown? I go sleep in the other room so that you two can do that thing you're doing there together. I just don't want to find dead bodies when I wake up. A man would leave his bedroom because your girlfriend came. A man would say, I am campaigning. It's a bad politics because he was a politician supporting a candidate. A man who will say, it's a political season. I do not want intimacy. If you're looking for sex, this is not the season. Let's meet in New Stanley on Saturday after I've come from Rosinga Island campaigning. That's when I know. A man I would tell him, I'm busy. I am branding a political party, doing all their t-shirts and all their campaign wear. This season, I'll not be home for 1 month. I'm working day and night. I'm in the printing press day and night, Adele. And would say, utamaliza 1 month, give me the date when you'll be done in 1 month. I married a best friend. Someone who understood the way I wanted to live my life. How I wanted to be an entrepreneur. How I wanted to be left alone. How I didn't even like cooking all the time. He would say, can I cook for you? Me and my friend Brenda, he used to find us on Saturday in my living room or in Brenda's house because we were neighbors, and would say, I'm giving you 10,000. You and your girlfriend, Brenda, here is the key. I didn't know how to drive. Go wherever, do what women do. Don't become gossipers here in the estate. You are educated women. So that's how I know. So I think women should find love that works for them. When you find love that works for you, I think then love is not a bad thing. I think love is really a beautiful thing. Then he dies, and then life changes again. And then I have to recreate myself again. I have to deal with widowhood and widowhood issues. I have to now carry two burdens: the burden of divorce, actually three: the burden of infertility, the burden of divorce, and the burden of widowhood. And I think I'm bearing those burdens with grace and with humor and with lots of stories, and perhaps teaching women how to live with their burdens. Oh my God, Adele. The burdens of widowhood is a Pandora box. When a woman becomes a widow, she first of all loses her identity. You are only known as Mjane, widow. In my community, they refer to you as Chiliel, the wife of the grave, all your life. All your life. With disregard of what that does to your mental health. Total disregard. And then there is the issues of traditional practices that are social norms in the context of my community and where I live and work. Wife inheritance. I don't even know why they call it wife inheritance. It should just be widow inheritance. Whose wife is inherited? You show me. A man who will agree his wife is inherited. And then there's issues of ritual sex at planting, golokodi. Before you plant, like now this season, there's that ritual sex. It's done in the hierarchy of birth by the first son, the second son. So if you're a widow and you're the third or second son or whichever hierarchy number you fall on in this marital home and your husband is dead, it's a sexual ceremony that has to be done before seeds are planted in the garden. So then ritual sex happens in various levels. Even when you want to build a home, goyodala, there has to be ritual sex. Even sometimes when families want to have weddings, the all manner of ceremonies, it goes with ceremonial practice. If you don't have a husband, that's the big question. So whom does a widow sleep with? When these practices are so normalized, the narrative of when women become widows, it's not framed without a man being involved. And therefore, men, sell themselves to do this, to meet this cultural gap. Men have commercialized it in the context of where HIV has perished communities. And so women have to pay the price. Some sell their goats to get for this service. It's a service now. And of course, in-laws also, if you're looking pretty a bit or there's some wealth, there's disinheritance, there is discrimination, and then there's just the overall stigma. The framing of widowhood in the context of where I work and my community is that grow small and smaller, then disappear. The disregard, the rejection, the devaluation of a woman with a dead husband. I mean, widow abuse in that context is systemic, cultural, and normalized. You don't say nothing. We've always lived like this. They use a concept I call fatalism. The earth will fall. The sky will fall on earth if we change anything, even if we speak about it. So these are what I found. And I said, there's something wrong here. On the fourth day after they buried my husband, Adele, they brought some nyatiti player, a guy to play nyatiti. Nyatiti is a traditional instrument. So this guy came to play it after 4 days after my husband had been buried. Because sons, 4 days, at birth, 4 days, you stay outside, sleep outside. And I said, I'm not sleeping outside on the rain. It rained heavily on the day was bad. I said, I'm not. How can you mourn a man? What will that change? It changes nothing. So then they brought the guy and a couple of relatives from the village, male relatives. So me and my sisters, we are thinking, at least there's some entertainment today, and we'll just stay for a week. This burial thing is over. We say goodbye to the family and leave, go start our lives. Kumbe the guy is the inheritor. Drunk, alcohol. A local instrument player in the village should have been the inheritor, should have been the cleanser. Then the inheritors would have been one of my in-laws, because often it's not the same man. Some places it's the same man. So there is a normal belief and cultural belief that when a man dies, the bad omen befalls his wife, the widow. And this bad omen can only be cleaned off sexually. And so there's going to be sexual intercourse. And in most cases, body fluids have to meet. And there's a lot of research on this and widow sexual cleansing. University of Nairobi has done a lot. And it was done during HIV. It was one of the spaces where HIV spread was very huge based on the number of deaths. So that is what was supposed to happen. And in my case, because I did not have children, remember I went into this marriage with the endometriosis and infertility, and yet he married me, and he knew, and he didn't discriminate me because of it. So really, women can find love, whatever situation you're dealing with. A man can accept you if he loves you wholly, just as you are. You don't have to change anything. And so they wanted, now that he's dead. And for him, anytime you'd bring that discussion up, he would say, si unajua huyu ni bibi yangu. Unajua uhusiano yangu we ni relative yangu. I can choose to be with you, you're my relative. I can choose to tolerate you or remove you from my life. And normally you would just call me and come and hear what these people are saying. Women should stop being devalued because of children. So if you want to be my friend, stop discussing this issue. I made this decision, and you would say it loudly every time. So I knew maybe it would have changed over time, but I knew for that season he was okay with me being the way I am. So they bring this man, and the claim is that sexual cleansing should happen. And then one of his male relatives should inherit me so that I could have children and name him. So my father-in-law, who's a pastor, came on board that night and said there was commotion when I chased them. And so the commotion went around the compound. And my father-in-law came and said, no, the funeral is over. Everybody leave. In that case, he became my protector. If he hadn't been, which in many cases other widows don't get protectors, I don't know, maybe it would have been rape in the name of culture. How many widows are raped in the name of culture? I ask them in my training all the time, did you sleep with a man because you wanted? Did you go through ritual sex because it was your choice, or because... I don't have a problem if you choose it. My only problem why I think it should be outlawed and criminalized is when it is forced. Because you are in a state vulnerable, going through grief and loss, that you can't make such serious discussions, such serious decisions. Even you can't have, your body is not even ready to, because the death of a spouse, Adele, is so huge. Takes a heavy toll on a human that it shouldn't be demeaned. You've lost your lover, you've lost the father of your children, you've lost your plans, you've lost a part of yourself. So when I discovered that women were silent about these widowhood issues, I decided to call a group of 3 women who I knew, they were in the political circle, because we were in a political circle then. I knew they had lost their husbands. So I called them into my living room and I said, tell me honestly how you're dealing with these issues. And they're very senior women in government. Help me understand. In fact, that's the word I use. Help me understand what these issues mean to you. Harmful widowhood practices, what do they mean to you? Explain to me. What does it mean, this kind of stigma and discrimination? I understand. I've been divorced, I'm childless, and now widowed. I understand if they're stigmatizing me, but what does it mean for other women? Also, help me understand who is doing something about it, who is talking, who is questioning. I say, there's a lot of research that has been done. I don't know, by Professor Kombo, University of Nairobi. There's a lot. I said, that's just writing. Tell me who is really advancing, championing, speaking to it. Can we speak to it? So we started meeting in my living room. Me cooking mandazis, and of course, women, Adele, they say how my mandazis are undercooked, those little gossips. I don't even eat mandazi, so how would I know? Not that I'm a bad cook. But I think when you live in stigma, everything around you, including your food, is stigmatized. Your dressing, your hair, your teeth, your color. I mean, everything, Adele. You'll never please them. It's impossible, women, to please society. Stop it, ladies. Be yourself. Live your life fully. So then we became 8. In fact, Rona is not where we started. I don't know, we had a name. We were calling ourselves something, self-empowerment for widows around globe, something. I forget the name. Then we were about to get registered, and we said our main goal would be help ourselves, create a safe space to heal, and then 2, become the voice, the champions of why these issues should be addressed under policy and structures and systems of governance. When social media opened up, I went ahead, because we had agreed, I went ahead and created a page. It still exists. Stop Widow Abuse in Kenya. One of the first stories I posted there was that we were coming together with this group, and I listed their names, that we were going to now speak about these issues. They were pissed off like hell. An emergency meeting was called, not now in my house, where was our original meeting, in another house, I think in Langata. A discussion was made and I was invited. Why was I shaming them? Why was I exposing their names in Widowed Matters? Why? I said, hey, I didn't know we are not supposed to do that. I thought the digital space is a free innovation space, a free speech space. When you have an issue, this is where you speak it and advance it. No. We didn't want it like that. The group collapsed. I remained alone, but I kept on writing because I believed it was right. I believed that to be called to a rape situation in my own house 4 nights after I've buried my husband, from the history of me standing up for myself all my life, to come to be raped in widowed, it didn't sit right with me. So then I went on writing how people were not shaking my hands, how they wanted me to shave my hair on that 4th day. I have always loved long hair. I mean, everything was just not working for me as a woman. And I said, I think this is about dignity and rights, and not just mine. Is there anybody here who has ever heard about widow abuse in the context of cultural practices? When I posted that post, within 1 hour, it had trended. It had I think, maybe around 2,000 comments and around 500 shares. Media picked it up, and then they began to invite me. So that group, I killed it completely. The moment I went on radio, the group died. So then, over time, other widows, other real vulnerable widows, started calling me after the radio programs. A newspaper, I think Standard, Shirley, gave me a whole column, 2 pages on a weekend. Shirley Genga. Shirley gave, yes, I love her. She gave me a full column, and I told her, Shirley, this is about women's rights. Let's discuss widowhood for what it is. It's a systemic and structural. In fact, it's an inequality on women that have lost their husband. So she did the story. When the story came out, widows were turning up at my door, Adele, in their numbers. So I started these events of every Saturday. I would, because I used to import then now second-hand goods from Sweden and selling in my house. So I had lots and lots of dead stock. So I would say, I'll donate the clothes, I'll make this bad mandazi and tea, I will feed them and their children, I'll create a space where we pray and do loss and grief sharing. So you just have 5-10 minutes and just share your story. So this is how I began storytelling. And then it went. So every Saturday there would be 10, then 15. One Saturday there were about 76 women, and some came with their children. These little shoes and slippers at my door. In fact, I took a photo. I have a photo. Was a sight to behold. Even you, it would shock you. While another group left, another one walked in, and in their numbers. And to date, it's 10 years later, they have not stopped walking in. They still do. So I was asked by Ian Mbugua, the judge Ian Mbugua then, to be judge a pageant for him with a friend of mine called Saranana. And then I refused to go one Saturday because these women were meeting in my house. So Ian was not happy because part of the panelists was mentoring young women. So, and I had a vibe. I had this connection with the young women. So when I didn't go, Ian and Sarah turned at my door and saw this sight. And they said, what is this you're doing? I said, but you're Judge Ian Mbugua, you're on TV. If I sneak you in my house, these women will not. No, sneak me on your balcony. There's a balcony in my house. I sneaked him in. And then this thing went on until almost 10 o'clock. In fact, sometimes some of those women would sleep. So we were praying, sharing. And they are there with Sarah, just talking. I served them some food. The next day, they called me, Java, yeah. And they said, Rosaline, this thing you're doing is huger than you. Do you know about NGOs? I said, no. Do you know what NGOs do? They challenge and champion rights of women and girls. I said, I've always been in business. I don't know these things. Okay, he took a paper. I have the piece of paper he wrote. What is this thing you're doing with these women? I said, I'm building relationships with them, and they're helping me heal. Relationship, he wrote. What are you looking for them? That mandazi, I said, maybe I'll need opportunities for them because some of them are really vulnerable. He wrote, what else? What else should, like this one we are doing with you is networking. And then what should be done? That you should lead is advocacy. That is how Rona was formed. Then he said, go to the NGO board. It sits here. He gave me even the address. Cooperative building, this floor. Then he wrote me a check, 10,000 shillings, and said, this should be funded. You cannot feed all those number of women and children for the rest of your life. After you register an NGO, begin to look for support. That is how it started. Then Shirley, again, gave me articles on space on the media. My house became a hub, a safe space where widows meet. We made it into a policy, the widow stories into a policy. We passed the 2015 widow cleansing on a bill that was never used. We documented the widows into a charter, their stories. Now we are pushing, we got widows represented in this election, got them elected, joined other widows globally, passed the UN Widow Resolution in 2022, and now advancing to push for a widows protection policy in my county in Siaya. That is how I used the story to turn it around. Adele, what I could leave African women with is women need to understand that there's death is built into life. You come with it. It's already in you. We live, we die. We eat, we sleep. But what women, especially young women, they need to know what happens when death does us part and learn how to develop coping and adaptive mechanisms earlier. Get to draft wills, get to prepare properties, is it in your name? Protect yourself in advance, because when death does you part with your partner, everything, including the people around you, change immediately. You're no longer their wife, you're a widow. Even your children, they will claim are not their children. If something ever went wrong, theft happens in the family, the first suspects will be your children. There's a way death changes African systems, that they hate the very daughter they loved and married in their home. That shocks me. Then the greed that comes with the society around them. And then the lawyers that are dubious and want to be used to disinherit widows. So learning, when they do let's talk about the church also. The church should advance their counseling to include what happens when death do partners, lovers part. Because it is very easy to speak only life. Let's speak death and what happens to the one who's living. Because if you look at the data, especially in Nyanza region, in my region where I work, lifespan is about 47 for men. In the US, it's about 59. Every woman will lose their spouse. 1 million married women will become widows at 59. If you look at the border motorcycle rider deaths, young widows, young girls becoming widows. For COVID-19 was a widow maker. The number of widows have grown in the last 3 years, more than ever. The governments can't close their eyes. They have to look at programming that intimately understands those needs and addresses them. Budgets have to be aligned to that category of women. But women particularly, their need is to not only love, but to understand that there is death will come. And what happens to you and your children when death comes is key here. The taboo subject of death stops people from thinking it. Thinking, if I think it, I will die. You will still die even if you don't think it. So it's safer to think it, and you will leave dependents. You will leave people who love you. How you leave them, you can choose now. And then the general attitude about widowhood, it's like this bad thing that only happens to people because they've done something. You could walk on the road today and you are dead. You could fly, and there was a guy, I think, that I saw on the news years ago, that he was walking with his earphones on the street in Australia, and then he died. Death is just death. It just comes and it takes. And it's never full. It will take again and again and again. And so this cannot be a women issue. For me, widowhood is systemic, structural, cultural, and it is about all of us. So you better know earlier. Lastly, I think for women, if I look at my entire life to date, Adele, if a woman has to choose between her soul and her marriage, I will ask a woman to choose her soul, because your soul is what returns to your maker, not your marriage.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. Rosalind's story, part 1 and part 2, just so freaking powerful. I love the bits where she talks about women connecting other women to opportunities, because I know just off the top of my head 3 women who have done that in my life. They're not related to me in any way, shape, or form. They have come in and just opened doors for me without even being asked to sometimes, and okay, I think I need to say their names. One is Shefa Okore, she's just a fantastic Kenyan woman. The other is Dr. Njoki Ngumi. love her. And the other is Kadzo, who's such a dear friend, my closest friend. You may remember her from the 75,000 Bob Curtin story. But yeah, and it's just so magical when women connect other women to opportunities. And I'm trying to ensure that I do that intentionally. I loved in Rosalind's story when she talks about cultural practices, because not many of us actually know the intricacies of these cultural practices and how oppressive they can be to women and sometimes children, sometimes men, and culture is important. I understand that. But I also think cultural audits are so important as well, because those of us who come from patriarchal societies need to acknowledge that these cultures or rituals and rules, etc., most of the time were created by men and were created in a time where we couldn't question, and now we know better, so why not do better? I love how she talks about opening your heart again to love after heartbreak or after relationships that don't work out. I really don't find this hard. I found out through therapy years ago what I do, which I don't know if it's healthy or not. It was not flagged as being unhealthy, but I leave a relationship before I leave the relationship. Like, I can tell this place, hey, we're sinking. We are sinking. But I'm not able to leave yet. So I'll work on the internal emotional work that needs to be done before actually exiting a relationship. So it looks like I didn't heal or take time to mourn the relationship, but I kind of did it already before I physically left. I don't know. Am I the only one who does that? Anywho, and I also like that she talks about death and how it's such a taboo topic, but it's like a natural thing. It's real. And so conversations in marriages need to be had around, and in relationships, honestly, need to be had around that. I know for me, I've done the reverse. Most people deal with in their wills about finances and assets. For me, what I've been very clear about is my exits and my exit celebration and what I want to happen, etc. But I haven't been that thorough in finances, etc. I don't know, maybe because I don't have kids. I don't know, but I need to get on top of that. I was thinking about that when listening to Rosalind. I was like, I need to do that. So in the show notes, I've put a link to Rosalind's Instagram page. You can connect with her, and also to her organization, Rona, in case you want to learn more about the work they do and how you can be part of it, amplify it, help her out. If you want to share your story in this podcast, if you're African, you have a story, it's valid. We want to hear it wherever you are in the world, because we do recordings virtually as well. Just fill out the storyteller form. There's a link to it in the show notes. Fill it out and we'll get back to you. Please be patient. We have tons of people wanting to share their stories. And so it might take a while to get back to you, but I promise you we do. If you are in Kenya, you can check out this podcast on Trace FM every Monday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. and 11 p.m., Fridays at 1 p.m. Just head over to traceradio.co.ke to stream Trace there. And lastly, check out our website. We have tons of awesome shows and episodes there that I think you'll dig. And spread the word. If you connect with an episode here, share about it. I have to shout out everybody who shares about us on Twitter. I really do appreciate it. I've seen so many tweets. I really do appreciate it. And I try to respond to each and every one of you. All right, until next time, I will reiterate my message to you earlier, which is I truly do love you and I'm rooting for you. So keep working on yourself and keep trying to be and do better. There is such a big life ahead of you and you're deserving of it. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.